Oh man, welcome back to Maebashi Witches, episode 7, and what a ride we are about to go on. We have questions, we got answers to questions we didn't ask, but we got more questions, and then we got trauma. Here we go. So, picking up from where we left off with this old lady, we are fortunate that she is not young enough and spry enough to really perceive what's happening. She just has Choco being real mad, real unhappy girl. And this old lady's like, oh, are you this person? And as far as when in this episode, this woman, Choco doesn't know her. It very much similarly to what happened with Azu a couple episodes back. She didn't know the model. This old lady doesn't have any direct correlation with Choco. Choco is just genuinely upsetty spaghetti in this scene. And Yuina, per usual, is just trying to, go with the flow, which, again, the one thing that's very interesting about Yuina thus far in the series is her trying to, keep things peaceful as often as possible. And trying to navigate this scene where it's another, rough and tough thing is going on, specifically in regards to how Choco is responding to this. You got Choco genuinely being like, old lady, I think you're lost. Please leave. Please get out of here. And just, we see for the first time this kind of front that Choco has been putting on the whole time just shatter in this moment. And technically speaking, after this episode, we don't have any direct explanation for what happened here. We can just, piece together from all the revelations in this episode why Choco behaved this way, but I stick to what I said before in the last episode. I think my theories, for the most part, have stayed either accurate or on par with what I believe after witnessing everything this episode, which is that Choco was just genuinely really disappointed and just super exhausted from everything that she does, and again, not having a sort of support base back at home that ever has been able to celebrate just her and give her a party like this. This is the one time that she seems to have really genuinely been celebrated. And for reasons that, even more reasons, especially regarding the cake and why she cared so much about the cake and all that, we get to see her really crumble with the one time that she's had this. And I genuinely think in the scene she just was pissed off that somebody stole her spotlight and she was just exhausted. But we'll tie back into that. We'll circle back to this and what probably happened here. And maybe next episode they'll clarify this. I don't know, they've been very interesting with how they've been handling these few episodes because they've gone a little bit off pattern. But nonetheless, they end up singing to this lady, which, mind you, we don't get a song this episode. We got 2 songs last episode, we get 0 this episode. We grant this woman's wish, we do our idol thing. I like this shoe shot just to showcase that they did it and then reverts back to their normal shoes. I thought that was clever to showcase that they did all of this without too much effort on the animator's part. And then we see Choco kind of reset and 100% go back to being her typical persona. And you see Yuna just kind of going along with it for the most part, while on the other hand, everyone else is like, I don't know how we're handling this. These three, it's interesting because, Azu gets a taste of her own medicine, and I'm glad that they call back that a little bit, where they're like, dang, this was just as bad as when Azu pulled her thing the other day. And Azu, we get to see her be like, ooh, was I that bad? Was what I did that rough? Ooh, don't bring that up. Don't bring that up. Was I that bad a few episodes ago? And I'm glad that they called out, because they kind of are recycling what they did with Azu. But it's different enough. As well as we don't have a direct answer for why that behavior occurred. Nonetheless, what really is interesting is both Kyoka and Mai, where Kyoka is angry. Kyoka genuinely is very upset with the way that Choco behaved for a couple of different reasons. I think for one, Kyoka has an incredibly strong sense of justice, but also I think it was very whiplashy to see somebody like Choco, who's normally just such a bright and sunny person, move so far away from what you're used to, that I think Kyoka is going through an absolute torrent of what's going on, and is honestly very reasonably upset at the way that Choco behaved. And then Mai coming back to what she normally does, which is she's trying to be the peacemaker who's like, let's just all get along. And honestly, it's interesting, because before we had, Mai do that to Azu, and she's like, Azu, let's just all get along and whatnot. But I'm not somebody who's really going to disagree with Kyoka's stance in here, because I feel bad for Kyoka with all of them being like, yeah, let bygones be bygones, let's let it slide. I get that for this particular scenario and what happened with Choco, or what likely happened with Choco, the best thing to do is just to kind of move past this, because as we reveal in the episode, Choco very likely did not do this and did not be mean. With her just like having this deep-seated mean personality, it's more of just likely more of her just lashing out because she's tired and exhausted and had the one thing that she cared about kind of ruined. But I definitely feel for Kyoka, who's like, we're not gonna unpack that. We can't be having that. That was insane. But also, I think there's a point where Kyoka's missing the point, which is like, we gotta figure out why you just did that. That was heinous and that was awful behavior and like very reactionary to that, other than trying to like do what probably needs to be done, which is figure out why Choco did that. Not so much that be upset that Choco did it. And we have Choco in a very interesting way ultimately assert that she's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go back to normal. Like, just puts this mask back on and she's like, I'm going back to being my Choco self, which the 180 is so... It's always very impressive with this character, with her character. Like, this girl has been just like holding so much in and has been masking that she very easily, like very surprisingly, slips back into being Choco, being the little Chocolina that we know. And it hurts because she sits there and she's like, I'll just be my normal self. I know what today was like unhinged. After she first tried to pretend like it never happened, where she's very like internally very stressed out that she let that slip and let that come forth. Poor girl. Also, I don't know what it is, but Keta Ope being obsessed with the cake, I have 1,001 questions in regards to Keta Ope in general this episode. Like, he's definitely moving more in the malicious category, but like, for somebody who can use magic at any point in time, he can just make himself a cake. He's constantly like, but what if we ate the cake? And I was like, why are you a glutton? You're a magical dude. You can just make the cake into existence every 5 minutes. I don't know why he's like... This is one thing I'm questioning at this point, trying to figure out what in the world's going on with Keta Ope in general. Is he not able to use magic unless it's in the context of the girls? He uses magic very willy-nilly throughout the series, but is it only that he can do that in the context of something going on with the girls? Because we haven't seen him really independently use magic for himself. It's always been something connected to other people. I don't know. I'm curious what our little like genie-like entity here is capable of and what means is he doing things. I don't know. Very confusing character. Now, the second we switched to seeing Choco's house, I was like, I'm right. I'm right on some fronts. I'm right on the front that she is from she's from a poor situation. Like, I think really clocking the shed here and like the damage on the shed, I was like, I'll be honest, in this economy, she has a house. She ain't that poor, but like, it's supposed to be she's poor. And then we also see like the kids' toys in the back and whatnot. So I was like, so she has it's a family situation. I was like, she has siblings. I can deduce that much from this singular image before it, like, actually shows us everything that's going on. We also have this cut where she's, like, looking at somebody's grave or, like, one of those, like, little shrines that you keep in your house for a loved one who has passed on. And I'll be honest, when this first showed up, I was like, I don't know which one is it. Was she, like, having a moment where, like, she was mean to this grandma, but she has, like, her own problems with her grandma? No, it's her dad. Her dad passed, and that's why they don't have money, and that's why that's here. But back to Sussy Potato Keta Ope. I don't know why he's coming for Kyoka here in this moment. Like, Kyoka clearly has also in her own way been letting her anxiety kind of ramp up to an unhealthy degree. And Keta Ope is like, you know what could solve your problems since you're a witch and you've been trying to be a witch to solve your problems? Just use the Mappo. It's interesting that he's been pushing her to use the Mappo. Like, we're putting 2 tinfoil hats on today. Tinfoil hat number 1 in the evil camp. What if he's trying to get the girls to use Mappo, but he doesn't want it to run out? Like, what if, like, secretly he doesn't want them to fully achieve the, like, 30K that they need to make? He just wants them perpetually to, like, earn and use the Mappo forever. And, like, maybe, like, the more that magic is utilized, the more he becomes, I don't know, a pudgy, strong entity of magic. I don't know. I don't know what's inside that little weird frog outfit he has. That zipper is always looking very sussy potato, and I'm scared to what final boss he might become in the end. Or a sexy lady, because whenever they got this thing, they're one of 2 things. They're either a horrid monster or a sexy lady, and I don't know which category it's going to be in. But I'm just saying it's probably one of those 2. But yeah, in the evil category, he's trying to perpetually get them to use magic, and that somehow benefits him in the same way, like a la Cube and Madoka kind of situation. On the other hand, on the other tinfoil hat, he has had kind of a bit of, like, reverse psychology parenting for the girls thus far, where pushing them in a not great direction has actually helped them affirm going in the correct direction. Like, not every action he's taken in regards to the girls has necessarily made their lives worse. It's usually one of those things where it pushes them to a breaking point where they do ultimately make or face a challenge where they get better. Like, honestly, I'd say Mai's time, for example, here has pushed her for the better. She, like, whether it was her own volition or not, she got cut off from a bad person, and she's living her life for herself. And I wonder if that's what he's going for, if it's in the malicious category. I don't know. The tinfoil hats don't speak to me as much as they could. But as if things could not get worse for Kyoko, who did reaffirm that she has not used the Mappo. Also, interesting, like, another thing is Choco has not used the Mappo. That'll be something I bring up a little bit later. But Kyoko has decided not to use the Mappo, and then we overhear that her parents, mostly her mother, has decided that they should move because she doesn't like the way that Kyoko's been living her life, specifically with her being more androgynous and, like, spending more time on the phone and things like that, getting into her spaces. All the things you don't want to hear. That's just gonna make Kyoko crash out. And here she is. She's, like, stuck between, like, everything that just happened with Choco and feeling kind of isolated because everybody else was like, let's just move on and ignore what happened with Choco and not address it, to, like, having her family, technically speaking, neg her. And so she has now receded even more into her VTuber space, which she has now decided to use the Mappo on. Finally caving, she is using the Mappo to generate money in order to pay the VTuber. And this is where I was like, oh yeah, no, my theory and or musing in regards to the mole were way off. Way off. I just realized too that we never got to see what Kyoka's gift for Choco was. We never got to see what that item was, and it's bugging me. Maybe it'll be a next episode. Maybe it'll come back around. I don't know. Anyways, refocusing in. The second that she was, like, using the Mappo to spend it on paying the VTuber, I was like, oh no, it's a bad place. Like, originally I was like, maybe the VTuber is a character we know, but I was also sitting there thinking, there's not really any character we've seen thus far who would fit the VTuber. And I should have realized that the second that there was no character that could have been that VTuber, it couldn't be Choco because we know she's way too busy, and then even more in this episode it reveals that why she was too busy, but she was always too busy to be the VTuber. Obviously it's not Yuna, obviously it's not Azu or Mai, and it doesn't feel like it was any of the side characters we met thus far, so I should have pieced together that if this character was not going to secretly be an ally, then this character was going to be a villain. Very, very unfortunately, he was going to be a villain, but we'll get to that later. In the meantime, we also get to see kind of the aftermath of where this is going. In a very interesting way, we see that because of her, like, VTuber endeavors, Kyoka is actually boosted her move, while Choco is the one who's weird about it. Choco is the one who's very much regretting that Kyoka is mad at her. Doesn't like the way that settled, which is nice. It's nice to see that despite, like, it technically leaning towards Kyoka getting cornered and getting more depression, which she's still not in a good place, but, like, we see that Choco's the one who's really regretting her actions and regretting the tension that it's caused, which I like that they went in that direction. Also, again, Kereope is now, like, exercising. I don't know what's with this dude. He confuses me. He confounds me. This little suspicious frog little entity. I don't know what to do with you. I don't know if we have to put you in mascot jail, but if I have to, I will. Anyways, I think it makes a lot of sense that Mai, especially now that Kyoka is the one having problems, Mai's the one who clocks that something's up. And I think it makes sense that Mai's the one who clocks it for multiple reasons. One, Mai has been closer to Kyoka than most of the other characters. But also Mai has training in being overly conscious of a singular entity. She was so clocked in to her toxic friend that she definitely can sit there and clock other people. And I'm glad that she's using that void of not paying attention to that one other person to now focusing in on Kyoka and being like, Kyoka is too happy. And I like that she notices that, because I feel like that's a much harder thing to notice in regards to, like, friends, is that she should be more upset. Kyoka should be more upset. Instead, she's unnaturally happy. And it's not feeling like that's necessarily a good thing, which fair. And again, Kereope with this stupid cake where he's like, let's eat the cake. And they're all like, no, that's not your cake, boy. Get off that cake. As well as the fact that we are leading time-wise. Like, besides all these incidents occurring, we do have the upcoming drama of Tanabata, which I assume will be probably the finale of the series, if anything else. I mean, technically speaking, we have, like, 5 episodes left while she colors in this 5. So I assume Tanabata is going to be the climax of the series. potentially. But nonetheless, they're all trying to gather up and trying to be able to handle it. Also, again, if we're only sitting here with like 1,000 Mappo and we have to get to like 30k, and we only have 5 episodes left, and we're coming up on Tanabata, maybe we're gonna season 2. Maybe this is all inking to a season 2. I mean, I enjoy this series. I hope it's successful. Get a season 2? Season 2 anybody? Season 2 everybody else? Nonetheless, we do finally have these two have some kind of conversation, since most of them passing out flyers was just kind of arbitrary. And I like that we get to see, now that Choco has been more realistic, it's nice to see her say what we've said before. I think it was Mai, who was like, why does everybody keep making really dumb wishes? Why does everybody who keeps coming by the shop ask for like such piddly wishes? And I think part of it is that they can only grant piddly wishes. I think granting major wishes is impossible. But we have Choco very like in that more rough area being like, they all keep making dumb wishes. This old lady could have wished for anything, but she just wished for a meal to be ready for her daughter, instead of, stop being a burden or something along those lines. Which makes sense coming from Choco's point where she's like, God, if one of my family members could make a wish, I hope they wish that they'd be less of a problem for me. I definitely think there was some kind of projection going on here. But Kyoko reaffirms what I said, which is the little wishes are important to them, and that not every single person has some big grand wish. What somebody truly needs is not some overly big concept. That like happiness can just come from something very small and a very small piece of influence. And I like that. I also think this is a good sort of bridging between these two characters and kind of reaffirming their relationship, especially since they notice that Choco does not nickname Kyoko the way she normally does, but she goes back to using her nickname here and sort of pushes these two back to being on more normal terms, even if they still really haven't addressed the elephant in the room. And honestly, I've really liked kind of the foil for these two characters, because if any characters have proven themselves to be kind of opposites, we do realize that it's these two. Again, Kyoka having her own sort of very internalized issues with like more of the grounds of like not having fantastic parents that understand and connect with her, while being like somebody who comes from a lot of privilege. While on the other hand, we have Choco, who comes from a far more impoverished family where her family is nice to her. There's no like no malice we've seen thus far between her and her family members. It's just that she has to deal with the weight of an entire family, despite being at a point in her life where she really shouldn't have to be. And it's interesting because I would expect those two things to kind of blow up at one point. But at the same time, we don't really have either of these characters talk about their home lives. Like, Yuina is the only one who knows about either of these two situations. And maybe it's for the better. I feel like if Choco had to listen to Kyoko complain about her own personal problems, I don't think Choco would really, like, be in a place in her life to sympathize with it. Not that Kyoko's, like, issues are very, very real and matter a lot, but I definitely think in the scope of somebody like Choco, she would probably not quite have it in her to sit there and hear somebody out who can have a meal on the table every time. Just the different walks of life and stuff. But I'm also glad that they have not put those two things in competition, because I think it would get really, really messy really, really fast. So the dynamic between these two has been very interesting and a very unique approach. But now it is time for us to really peel back more into the reveal of Choco, where she tries to go home and immediately passes out, which we do have the revelation of why that even occurred. When she goes back, as we had seen episodes prior, Kerope had mentioned that when you go back to your home, in order to avoid suspicions, you can roll back time. And Choco is not simply rolling back a couple hours to make up for the time that she has spent in the witch realm. She genuinely has been rolling back like a whole day in order for her to basically double up on time, which I feel like should have a little bit more of a repercussion, and I think time is a little willy-nilly in this series, but it makes sense. And nonetheless, she passes out. At first I was like, oh my god, she's dead! No, she just passed out. She's just worn out completely, which is way better, because I was like, oh my god, does she have a disease? Is she terminally ill? Is that the plot twist? It was not the plot twist. And now we have Kerope. Again, this is where he's being useful and, like, helpful to the cause. Where he's like, oh, do you want to know what it's like to be living a day in Choco's life? And we basically reveal a lot of what I had kind of theorized, though I went a much more dramatic way with the whole, like, orphanage situation. But yeah, having a family that she now has to completely support and work extra jobs for is basically, that's spot on what was going on here. She has to take care of her family members due to her mother's injury and her grandmother's hospitalization, which is eating a lot of their like money or straight up not earning any money in that department. She has to do all the cooking and the cleaning. Also, I like how Kereope is looking so stressed at Yuina trying to like cut with a knife. He's like, girl, you gonna lose a finger. And we also see that like a lot of different things have been installed in this house in order for this to happen. Like you see the bar even in this scene that is not a typical bar you would see in a bathroom, or it's usually something you would do if it was a handicapped bathroom. Like they've gone to lengths to make this work for the situation with the family, where they don't have a dad, grandma's hospitalized, mom's injured. It's a rough time. And of course, as I had surmised before, Choco is tired, not only because she's using the magic, it actually ended up being both. So like, she is exhausted because she was using magic, but she was also exhausted because she works multiple jobs trying to earn any money she can for the family. And then speaking of family, she does have 2 siblings, which again is like, I was like, to make this fully wrap around, she'd need to have siblings of some kind, or again, the orphanage situation, where there's other beings who completely eclipse any sort of attention that the parents could supply. So in the sense that her mom can't really give her like a lot of like attention or sympathy or anything, because mom's both distracted with her own injuries, and then there's 2 other siblings that are quite young that demand the attention. And the 2 siblings are too young to do anything for Choco, which is why it doesn't state it. Again, a lot of this does not actually answer the questions we have slated at the top of this episode. Like, why does Choco care so much about getting the cake? Why is the food so important? Why is she so against the woman interrupting it? And while they don't state it in this episode, again, my leap in understanding with the evidence they've given us thus far, I assume when having siblings like this, she's had no opportunity to have anybody provide, like, celebrate her birthday. They probably don't even realize her birthday's there because the siblings are too young. They couldn't really do anything for Choco. And they demand all of her attention with, like, playing and stuff. And then her mom is just, like, her mom's kind of checked out a little bit there just because of the both stress and the injury. We just kind of see how rough Choco ultimately has it. And it makes sense that, like, while Choco's doing all of this, like, we learn that, like, she has a very amicable relationship with her family. She's not got a rough relationship with her mom. Any of the resentment that we see blow up at the top of the episode, at the end of last episode as well, she must hold it in because she doesn't seem to put any of that on her family. She seems to just quietly take on the entire burden of this family. And then we get to the food thing, which is what I had also theorized. I feel like I'm doing pretty good on my theories here, where Choco doesn't have any food. That's one of the reasons why. They never stated directly, but again, not gonna make, I think this is gonna be the most, like, theory that I'm not gonna say I'm wrong on. I'm gonna be pretty definitive on this. The reason why she's so obsessed with eating food when she's with everybody else and resting and whatnot is because she doesn't get this here. And then again, while she carried the bag of food back with her in that episode, like in last episode, I'm assuming that's for her siblings. Between herself and her siblings, I'm sure that's just to feed the family. It's not the most healthy food, but we did at least see in this back scene that she makes curry and stuff. She does feed them normal food. But yeah, it makes sense that she would only have, like, sweets and snacks and stuff because that's all you would get from work. People would bring, like, communal snacks and stuff. Like, we see Yuna all the time. She's bringing manju. She's not gonna bring, like, here's a 4-course meal, and then, like, you know, you just have Choco show up with Tupperware and put it all away and be like, I'm just gonna take this back home. It makes sense that, for the most part, I would say that the reason why she has her food obsession is because she doesn't have food. And we have that answered. They don't make that direct connection, but I'm gonna say that that's the reason. And then we get the hill moment we saw in the preview, where we have this kind of conversation, at which Choco leads with the fact that, like, hey, my family situation, like, I don't really want to be pitied and I don't want to talk about it. I'd rather kind of keep this whole thing to myself. And it makes sense for multiple reasons. One's the Japanese culture thing of, like, you don't want to be a burden on others, so she keeps, like, her situation secret and she's not sharing it with the other girls, which I do find to be kind of a bummer. In the same way that Kyoka telling her backstory to Yuna, I find to be a bummer. I'd rather the whole group know these pieces of information. Like, I like that everything in regards to Mai is on the table. There's nothing about Mai that Yuna knows that no one else knows. I'm hoping that does not come to bite us in the butt for both Kyoka and Choco, because I do feel like I feel like Mai and Azu should know and be more privy to what their, like, situations are, but hopefully that will happen in the future. And then nobody knows what's going on with Azu, but they will. I'm assuming they will eventually, when things get really heated up. for however dramatic this season finale has got to be. But at the same time, for her keeping it all in and trying to not burden everybody with her own problems, it does reveal what I'm glad Yuna hits hard against, which is the fact that Choco keeps minimizing her problems. She's like, oh, well, people have it harder than I do with my family, and things suck for me, but like it's so much worse for others. Like she, in this moment, while again, they don't say this super directly, but it is what's implied here, is that she bottles up all of her emotions, and that is likely why she exploded at the end of last episode, beginning of this one. She doesn't give herself room to like feel because she's already managing the entirety of her family. And Yuna's like, girl, you just gotta say that it sucks. Pouring right into the title of like, when it sucks, and we should just say it sucks. And really pushing Choco to not hold that all in, I think is good. I think moving forward, we'll probably see a much more leveled out Choco, where she's not just all like, I think we're still gonna see her happy Choco self, but I also think her being more honest and her not bottling things up is probably where we're going to move forward with her character and see her be more honest like she was with Kyoka. And I think that's going to lead to more meaningful conversations too, because so much Choco has just been an agreeable character who's just been like, oh man, that's cool, or oh man, that's a bummer, alongside everybody else. I think her letting go of the mask a little bit and letting herself be more honest and real with the girls, I think will also just make her a more present character, I guess is the best way to put it, instead of just kind of feel like a mascot more so than Gerobe. And overall, I like how this is resolved. I don't like that it's just Yuna, but I do, again, think Yuna is a very decent protagonist and really does a good job kind of pushing her here in the way that she needs to. I also wonder, because I still think Yuna is going to be the last, like the secret last character we address, who's going to have her own sort of like emotional plot line for the finale. Or at least I think they should do that. If I were the writer, that's what I would do. I'm interested to see that come back for whatever kind of grief we're going to have to see Yuna go through. But overall, I like that this really reaches Choco, and I think this is kind of a happy-ish. I don't want to say resolution because I feel like this is not ended. Like, we didn't get a song, for one, but two, I also really I just feel like her plotline, I don't want it to be the end of it. It feels like it still has a lot less closure, mostly because the other girls are just not involved. But I'm glad to see that this kind of has been a bit of a healing process. And it ended up being like, the way they keep going for these is that whatever we think is going to be the most dramatic thing in the universe ends up being not dramatic, and then something else ends up being way more dramatic. So this is one of those moments where like this kind of patches up pretty nicely. And the art is so beautiful for this. This is just so beautiful between them. It's such a sweet moment. Now we have to talk about what I don't want to talk about. I have not touched on this too much because this is like, I did not expect this to go so dark. Like, I know Kyoka is going through it, but the second he DM'd her, I knew this was bad. I was like, no, it like happened in slow motion. The second this creepazoid messaged her, I was mad. Like, they caught me in the first half. He's like, don't overspend. And I was like, oh, but you're DMing her, so this can't be good. This can't be okay if you're DMing her. But our stupid mole man DMs her. And then as if he could not, this scum, this absolute piece of scum, reveals that he looked into her as an individual. Like, at first I thought the worst it was going to be is that he called her a girl. And I was like, okay, maybe she, like, people assume genders on streams this whole time. And she was just going to be upset that, like, he's like, you're a girl. And she's like, don't do that to me. Gender is stupid. Like, I was hoping that would be the worst of it, but no, it got worse. Because then he had a really creepy picture of her, and then was like, I know where you live, kind of. He didn't seem to fully understand who she was, because it sounded like he thought she was middle class, but she's definitely not middle class, but he's stalking her, and it's really creepy. And then he sends a picture of himself, and he's like, oh, what you doing later? It was disgusting. I hated it. Oh my god. I didn't even put the messages in this video because they were so upsetting to me. I hated every singular second of what I was forced to deal with here. And I'm not, like, as much as I was, like, looking forward to this episode just so we could figure out what was going on with Choco and get her sad TM backstory, I cannot handle the next episode. And what's worse is that I'm so concerned that she better tell the others. Like, the one redeeming quality to all of this is that they have magic, and as long as she can get back to the witch realm, we can just kill him. Like, listen, hear me out. We have magic. We just give him a little stab. Just give him a little warning stab. Like, this freak is gonna go. We take him down. We can just kill him. We're witches. Witches, we have all the fun connotations. We can go back to their traditional sense of a witch. We can boil him. I'm just saying, it's a fun little Tuesday activity. Tuesday activity for a creep. Oh my god, this was very traumatizing, I'm not gonna lie to you. Oh, it made me so uncomfy. And, like, it also sucks because, like, she has put all of, like, he was her serotonin. She was like, his streams made me feel happy when everything else in my world was crashing down. And now he's a creep. Oh, like, her whole world is shattering. She's very much going down the same path. Like, I think for as much as Choco has kind of been revealed to be very similar to Azu in a crazy twist of things, very similar to Mai, she's having her world crash down, but far more disgusting. Oh, I'm so scared. Like, I think both Choco and Kyoka have also acknowledged that the two of them bottle stuff up. And so I'm hoping that now that Choco has been told that she's allowed to not bottle things up, I hope we can do that with Kyoka. I also don't know how much of the next episode is going to be dedicated to Kyoka or Choco, or if it's going to be another, like, split one. I don't know, but, like, girl, I would hide in the witch realm. I just spend 24/7 in the witch realm. You're safe there. We can have a magic knife. I'm just saying. I hated this with every fiber of my being. But that's it for now, guys. Oh man, I'll see you next Monday to see whatever comes out of this. Holy! I will see you next time. Bye-bye!